A few months after I moved here, probably became in May, I didn't, for some reason, Chantal was out west and did something in the summer. I had never really got to connect with her until the fall. I had the opportunity one Sunday, had known Sam and Camille, but hadn't heard about her story, but hadn't got to meet her. And just one Sunday, saw her here, so I sought her out to talk to her, and Chantal charmed me from the very beginning. She's obviously, many of you know her, she's a fabulous communicator, very warm person, and her story intrigued me. And got to spend some time with her after her surgery. Went over one day and we just sat around and chatted for a bit. And as a result of that, Terry has asked me if I would do her interview, and her story is fabulous. Many of you know her and know the story, but we're going to revisit it. So Chantal, you're going to tell us about how, you told me about the other night, how your story began and when this all started.
Well, thank you for saying all those nice things. Emita's great too. Thank you. So in the spring of 2010, I was experiencing some swelling in my leg, and I had some abdominal pain, and I didn't really know what it was about, so I went to go see my doctor, and she just kind of, because she knows me and I, go for checkups and everything, and I was healthy, she just kind of said, well, just take some anti-inflammatories, and, maybe you're just bloated or whatever. But I kind of just kept pushing it, and eventually they sent me for some tests, and they found a lump in what they thought was my abdomen. And eventually then they sent me for surgery, thinking that it was a benign mass on one of my ovaries. When I went for the surgery, they discovered that it wasn't at all what they thought it was, and the surgeon thought that it could be cancerous. And so that's kind of how it all started. And yeah, eventually it was confirmed that it was cancer. Yeah.
So you went through your, after that you told you went into a round of chemo, yes?
Yes, so after, it took a while for them to make the diagnosis of exactly what type of cancer it was. They eventually diagnosed me with something called nodular Hodgkin's lymphoma. So they weren't really familiar with that type of Hodgkin's lymphoma. My doctor had said that in the last 20 years, there's been 22 reported cases in Canada. So it took a while for them to kind of figure out, and through talking to other cancer clinics all through, throughout North America, they decided that they were going to put me on a special chemotherapy regimen. And so I did that for 6 months, and then, then they decided that they had to do me for another 2 months, so I did 8 months of that chemotherapy.
Which brings us to this past summer. I remember just after we had gotten here, you had went for the results at the end of this round of these 8 months
yes.
of chemo.
Yes.
And it came back not as any of us would like it to have come back.
Yes, so the results were that the tumor hadn't, there was no change after the 6 months, which is why they asked me to do, there was change after 6 months, but it hadn't reduced enough, it was still, a significant portion was still there. So they sent me for another 2 months, and then after that, there was no change between the 6-month point and the 2-month point. And then they asked me to wait a little bit, and they thought, well, maybe it could be scar tissue that was left. But the doctor didn't really think so, because the CAT scan still showed a significant mass. And then I did something called a PET scan, and that came back positive. So they believed that it was, still cancer that was there. And so then it was just kind of, what were the next steps going to be? So they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do. They didn't really want to do radiation because they said that that would leave me, because of where the mass was in my groin, they said it would leave me infertile. It would have completely left me infertile. So that wasn't really the step that they wanted to take. They didn't want to do surgery because when they had done the biopsies before, and even from the laparoscopic surgery they attempted at the beginning, the mass was so vascular that it caused a lot of internal bleeding, and they're afraid of spreading the cells, the cancer cells. So they were, I don't know, they were figuring out what to do. So eventually they decided to, there was this one surgeon who said that she would operate on me, and she thought that she could do it successfully, but it would be really risky, but she thought that she could do it. So.
That was my first meeting with Chantal. On that Sunday, she started to tell me a bit about the surgery and about her great apprehensions. Now you are, how old, Chantal?
24 now.
24 is right. 24 years old, you're faced with this, a surgery that none of us would want to have to undertake, and there was risk and a lot of concerns.
Yes.
In the time I had first met you, that beginning of September, which I think it was just before Labor Day, to when you actually made the decision, how do you feel that you had shared with me a bit about how you felt God had helped you through the process, and even to the point of bringing you to know that that was the right thing to do?
Well, one thing that I've shared with probably a lot of people, if you've kind of asked me how I've been feeling, and I've said that kind of throughout this process for me, I felt a sense of peace. Making the decisions, I've had to make a lot of different decisions about my care, what choices, the direction that I'm going to go with my treatment, and I've always kind of felt a sense of peace, like that I'm doing the right thing when I've chosen, one thing over the other. And then it came to the surgery, and I was waiting, for a few months to kind of figure out what they were going to, what they thought was best to kind of give me my options. And then the options were surgery, which would be really risky. There's a lot of complications associated with it, or to just try and go ahead and do the radiation. And then, so there were a few different things, and I asked them to do another PET scan for me just to confirm, because at the beginning when I did the PET scan in July, they had said that, well, the reason why that it came back positive could be because of inflammation, that the cells were still inflamed. So I asked them to do another PET scan, and the doctor said that there was absolutely no change. There was still the same amount of positive, it lights up to show where the cancer is. So they said that it was still the exact same amount of uptake from the test. And so he said, it's more than, he can't say for sure because he's not inside of me, but he said that, it's more than likely that it's cancer because there's no change in the PET scan, and he recommended that I do this surgery. And between the time that I was able to get all the testing back and from when he had, I gotten all this information, all was really, really quick. And so I was really scared. And it's the first time that I've felt that way. I felt this peace, and I was scared because I just felt like, it's happening so fast, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this. But I prayed about it, and some of you, I was in a church on Sunday, and I was upset, and so many people were praying for me, and it's like I just got that same sense of peace again, and I knew that this is kind of what I needed to do, and I was okay with it. And the surgery went well, it was successful, so.
So that weekend, we had been at a wedding with your parents at Katie's wedding, and your mom had told me how much pain you were in.
Yeah.
And I came in to visit you on the Tuesday, I guess, and hang out with you a bit at the house. And you were feeling better by then, and we had chatted for a while. And just before I went to leave, Chantal said, "I have something though I want to tell you. And you were kind of like, I want to tell you something, and I want to see what you think of it." Okay, what's she going to tell me? And you began to share, you told me about a dream you had.
Yes. I had a dream. So I was in so much pain after not initially after my surgery, but a few days after I came home, I was in an excruciating amount of pain, and it was Thanksgiving weekend. And it was so bad, like I couldn't move, I couldn't get out of bed, I had no relief, and I wanted to go to the emergency, but then I was thinking, like, the thought of me even having to get out of bed and like sit in a car and go, and I wish that maybe like a doctor could just make a house call or something. Like I couldn't think of getting out of bed or moving at that moment. Like I was in just too much pain. And it was like that for a few days. And then on Sunday, I think it was, Sunday night, I had a dream, and it was, there was two people in my dream. One was a woman and one was a man, and the woman said to me, and she said, when you wake up, you are not going to be in any more pain. And she said, you're still going to be uncomfortable, but the pain that you're experiencing right now, you're not going to feel. You're going to feel better. And the man was saying, he's like, no, he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, don't listen to her. She just wants to get your hopes up. Don't believe in that. You're still going to be in pain, and don't get your, like, just being very negative and kind of mean. And in my dream, I remember saying, no, like, I believe her. I'm going to be better. I'm not going to feel pain anymore. And I woke up like a few hours later, and I wasn't in pain. Like I felt, I was better. I was healed. I was in. And so, and he told me.